Imagine you stand at the gates of Cairo, 1260 AD, and the air tastes like metal. You see merchants stop bargaining mid-sentence. You see a mother clamp a child's mouth shut before the child can cry. You feel the city listening for hoofbeats that are not here yet, but already live inside everyone's skull. A rider staggers through the gate like a man fleeing a fire. His horse foams. His eyes do not look at faces, they look through them, as if Cairo already burns and this is only the smoke reaching you. The rider's hands shake as he pushes forward a sealed message. The wax stamp is unbroken, but the thread inside already leaks out into the crowd like poison. You see the guard stiffen. You feel the sudden silence, so tight it hurts the ears. Baghdad is not a story anymore. Aleppo is not a rumor. Damascus is not a distant name. Those places are now a single word that fits in the mouth like a stone. Gone. You do not stand here as a noble with a library of ancestors. You stand here as a mamluk. Bought young. Cut away from whatever life comes before. Rebuilt into a weapon that eats, sleeps, and bleeds in the shape of a cavalryman. You feel the leather of the saddle like a second skin. You feel the bowstring bite the fingers. You smell horse sweat and oiled steel. This is home. But home is about to be tested by a storm that makes armies feel like grass. The sealed threat is carried inward. You move with the current of bodies, through corridors where torchlight shivers on stone. You see officials and commanders gather without ceremony. Their mouths stay polite, but their eyes argue like knives. Someone breaks the seal. The parchment unfurls. The words are not just words, they are a verdict offered in advance. Submit and live on your knees. Resist and be erased so completely that the land forgets your name. You feel your stomach tighten, not from fear alone, but from the insult. This enemy does not negotiate. This enemy counts cities the way accountants count coins. A man near you whispers prayers fast enough to choke on them. Another man laughs once, short and broken, like a bone snapping. But nobody runs, because where does a soldier run when the map itself is shrinking? Sultan Qutuz stands where he can be seen. He does not perform calm, he enforces it. His posture is a command. His gaze moves across the room and pins each heartbeat in place. You feel the decision arrive before it is spoken. Hesitation is a kind of surrender. Therefore, the only answer is motion. Therefore, Cairo becomes an armory. Orders slam into the city like drumbeats. You rush outside and see the streets mutate, smiths hammering shoes onto hooves, fletchers counting arrows, leather workers sewing water skins, boys dragging bundles of kindling. The normal world dissolves. There is no market day. There is no festival. There is only the question, can the Mongols be made to stop? You grip a saddle strap until the leather squeals. You check your bow, your quiver, your sword. You feel the weight of your helmet settle onto your head like a debt. Your commander does not promise victory. He offers a direction. March north. Meet them before they reach the Nile. You mount. The horse shifts under you, impatient, sensing the tension in every hand. You see the city recede behind, the minarets and walls shrinking. You feel something like grief and something like relief, because waiting for destruction is worse than riding toward it. The column moves. Dust rises. The sound is endless. Hooves, harness rings, murmured orders. You taste grit. You blink it away and keep riding because the only way out is forward. Scouts come and go like thrown knives. One returns swearing the Mongol force is smaller now, that their great leader pulls away toward other wars, that this is a leftover fist instead of the full arm. But another scout staggers back with a different story, shadows on ridgelines, smoke signals, riders that vanish into distance like spirits. The numbers do not match. The rumors do not align. You do not get certainty. Therefore you sharpen what you can control, your gear, your horse, your own breath. The march becomes a grind of needs. Horses require grain, but grain is heavy. Men require water, but water is fragile. Therefore every scan is checked twice, every strap tightened, every ration counted. You chew hard bread until the jaw aches. You suck moisture from dates and feel it barely touch the throat. Hunger becomes a background noise like insects. Night arrives, but sleep does not. You lie down in armor because there is no safe moment to undress. You close your eyes, but one ear stays open for hoofbeats. You feel the ground through the blanket, cold and unwelcoming, and you wonder if the next sound is wind or an approaching scout or something worse. The road bends toward territories that carry their own danger, crusader strongholds. Their stone towers rise like clenched teeth. You see them watching. You feel eyes on your back from slit windows. These are enemies by habit and memory. But the Mongols terrify even them. Therefore, an uneasy passage is allowed. You ride through a corridor of silence where no arrow flies, but every parapet feels loaded. You do not relax. You taste betrayal in the air even when nothing happens. The absence of attack feels like a trap that simply chooses patience. The column presses on. The land opens into valleys and ridges that can hide riders. Your fingers keep returning to bow and sword, as if checking they still exist. Somewhere near the front, Baybars moves like a restless blade. His name runs down the line in murmurs. Not as a prayer, but as a strategy. He pushes ahead, probing, daring the enemy to show itself. The plan does not arrive as a speech. It arrives in fragments, because speaking it aloud risks killing it. You catch pieces: bait, retreat, concealment, signal. Feigned retreat. The phrase tastes like shame at first. You feel pride flare, your training screams to charge, to meet a foe head-on. But pride does not stop arrows. Therefore the mind swallows pride like bitter medicine. You practice the movement in your head, turn, run, resist the urge to look back, trust that comrades wait hidden. One misstep, and the Mongols chase you into pieces. The Mongols. The word is never spoken lightly now. You see in imagination what survivors describe: horse archers who shoot while moving, lines that split and recombine like water, discipline without mercy. You do not know if those stories grow in the telling. But you also know the cities that fall do not get to argue about exaggeration. The march reaches the Jezreel Valley, near a spring called Ain Jalut. Goliath's Spring. The name sits on the tongue like prophecy. But prophecy does not tighten a girth strap. Therefore you focus on the ground, the slopes, the folds, the patches where a cavalry force can hide and the places where a charge can choke. You dismount and lead the horse quietly. You see officers motioning men into positions. You feel the tension of waiting without moving, a different kind of battle that starts in the muscles and crawls up into the throat. Baybar's forward line rides out. You watch from concealment. You see their banners flicker, then settle as they slow into contact range. You hear distant shouts, sharp, clipped, urgent. Arrows begin to fly. At first the sound is thin, like insects. Then it thickens into a buzzing curtain. You see men jerk in saddles, not always falling, sometimes just changing. A rider sways, tries to stay mounted, then slides down like a sack. The horse keeps going without him. Therefore the line becomes uneven, full of sudden gaps where bodies are supposed to be. The Mongols surge into view with terrifying speed. You see them crest a rise and spill downward like a flood that knows exactly where to go. Their horses look smaller than expected, but their movement makes them feel like a single creature with 1,000 legs. They shoot while riding. They shoot without stopping. You see arrows arc and flatten, a storm with intention. You feel the urge to rise from hiding and charge, because watching is unbearable. Baybars turns. He runs. On purpose. It looks wrong. It feels like betrayal. Your blood heats, your hands tighten, your body screams that this is the moment to rescue, to slam into the enemy's flank. But the order holds you down harder than any chain. You stay hidden because the trap requires patience stronger than courage. Therefore your courage becomes stillness. The Mongols chase. Of course they chase. They have chased armies across continents, turning retreats into massacres. Their commander drives them forward with the confidence of a man who expects the world to obey. You cannot hear his voice from here, but you feel the logic: speed, pressure, finish. You see the Mongol line stretch as it pours after the retreating bait. Stretching feels dangerous, but the Mongols treat danger like a tool. Your mouth dries. Your horse shifts, sensing your restraint. You press a hand into its neck to keep it quiet. You smell sweat rising under armor. You feel your heartbeat in the jaw. You do not know if Baybars survives the chase. You do not know if the Mongols suspect the trap. You do not know if the hidden force is large enough. Fog of war is not poetry here, it is the air you breathe. Then the signal arrives. A horn tears through the valley, one long note that seems to split time itself. Drums answer, fast and brutal, like a giant heartbeat. Therefore, concealment dies instantly. You explode from cover. Thousands of hooves hammer the earth at once. The sound is not a sound, it is a wall moving. You kick the horse forward and feel the surge as if the animal becomes a storm beneath you. You see comrades on both sides, lances leveled, bows raised, armor flashing in broken light. You feel the air snap past your face as the charge builds. Your stomach lifts. Your vision narrows to targets. The Mongols whip around with frightening speed. They do not panic like farmers. They pivot like predators. You see them attempt to form a circle, to turn the open ground into their weapon, to shoot into the charging mass. Arrows stitch the air. You hear impacts, dull thuds into flesh, sharp cracks into wood, ringing strikes into metal. A man beside you takes an arrow in the throat and makes a wet, surprised sound before he topples. Therefore, you stop thinking of individuals and think only of momentum. The valley becomes a vice. Baybar's force reappears from the far side, no longer fleeing, now turning back with teeth bared. The Mongols are caught between two moving walls. But the Mongols are not trapped animals. They fight like fire. They surge toward weak points, testing, searching for a seam to rip open. You cannot tell who is winning. You only know everyone is dying. The air fills with shouts in languages that collide like blades. You smell horse breath, blood, and the sour bite of fierce sweat. Your arms begin to burn from holding the bow at speed. You loose an arrow at a rider turning to shoot. The arrow flies, disappears into bodies. You do not know if it hits the target. Therefore, you loose another. Then another. The quiver lightens fast. Suddenly, a thundercrack rolls across the fight. It is not the clean ring of steel. It is deeper, uglier, like the sky tearing. Maybe it is crude gunpowder tubes. Maybe it is something thrown into the chaos to make the world sound different. But the effect is real. Mongol horses flinch. You see ears pin back, eyes widen, hooves stumble. For a heartbeat, their perfect motion stutters. Therefore, their line wavers. That wobble is everything. You slam in. The distance collapses. Arrow range becomes sword range. You feel the impact of bodies meeting at speed. Horse against horse, knee against knee, shield against shoulder. Steel screams. You draw the sword and it feels suddenly heavy because now every swing must be precise or it hits a friend. You smell the oil on your own blade. You feel the vibration travel up the arm when metal meets metal. A Mongol rider lunges close. You lock eyes for a fraction of a second and see not a monster, but a man with dust on his face and certainty in his gaze. He believes you break. Therefore, he commits fully. His blade flashes. You raise a shield. The hit jolts the bones. Your horse sidesteps, almost colliding with another. You feel the panic of losing balance. Therefore, you hook a leg, pull yourself tight, and strike back. The sword bites into lamellar. It does not glide like in songs. It catches, sticks, jerks free. The rider grunts, a human sound, then vanishes behind a surge of bodies. You do not know if he falls. There is no time to look. The Mongols attempt to punch out of the valley. They drive toward a rise where the vice seems less tight. You see their banners shift that direction like a school of fish turning. Therefore, your line shifts too, grinding forward, refusing to open. Your lungs burn. Sweat runs down under armor and stings the eyes. You blink hard, keep the sword up. You taste salt and grit and something coppery that might be blood. Somewhere close, a commander's voice rises above the din, raw, furious, almost cracking. You see Sultan Kutuz where he should not be, too close to the killing, too exposed. He is not safe behind lines. He is a figure in the crush, rallying with his presence, turning fear into anger. You feel the army's spine stiffen. Therefore, men who start to falter straighten and press in again. The Mongols answer with their own ferocity. A cluster of riders charges, attempting to split the center. Their arrows fire at point blank, shots that slam into armor with the force of thrown hammers. You see one arrow punch into a horse's chest. The animal screams and collapses, throwing its rider under hooves. Therefore, the ground becomes a hazard of bodies and broken tack. You ride over something soft and instantly regret knowing what it is. Your horse stumbles but keeps footing. You feel the animals tremor through the saddle. You lean low, whispering nonsense sounds just to keep it steady. A Mongol blade catches your shield edge. The shield yanks sideways, nearly tearing from your grip. Therefore, you let the shield go rather than lose balance. It drops, vanishes beneath hooves. Now there is only sword and speed. You switch to close fighting, hacking at reins, at arms, at the gaps in armor when they appear for a heartbeat. You see a Mongol rider try to turn and loose an arrow behind him. You slash at his bow arm and he snarls, the arrow wasted into the sky. The vice tightens. Baybar's men hammer from one side, the hidden force crushes from the other. The Mongols begin to lose space. Their famed mobility becomes a cage because there is no room to run their circles. Therefore, discipline turns into desperation. But desperation can kill just as well as discipline. A Mongol group fights its way toward open ground, leaving a trail of dead horses and men. You chase, then stop, because chasing too far breaks the trap. Therefore, restraint returns, even in blood. The battle lasts longer than the mind wants to accept. Time fractures into moments, a shout, a fall, a blade glance, a hoarse scream, a sudden emptiness where a friend rides, then nothing. You do not know if reinforcements arrive for the Mongols. You do not know if a hidden second force waits beyond a ridge. Every time the line shifts, the heart jumps, expecting a fresh wave. Fog of war stays thick, even in daylight. Then a rumor races through the fighting faster than any horse. The Mongol commander is down. You do not see it happen. You only see the effect. The Mongol pressure changes. It is subtle at first, like a hand loosening on a throat. Therefore, the manluck line surges, sensing weakness the way wolves sense a stumble. You push forward and see a knot of men around a fallen figure. There is shouting, pointing, frantic attempts to hold ground. Mongol faces twist with something new, anger that has nowhere to go. The unthinkable becomes a fact with weight. The myth of invincibility suddenly has a body on the dirt. Therefore, the Mongols begin to withdraw, not in a stampede, but in controlled retreat that still bleeds. The fighting does not stop cleanly. It frays. Pockets resist. Stragglers die. Men chase too far and vanish behind rises. You do not know if they return. Finally, the noise collapses into smaller noises. A wounded man sobbing without shame, loose horses snorting, leather creaking on abandoned saddles. You sit in the saddle and realize the hands shake. Therefore, the hands grip the sword harder, because letting go feels like falling apart. You look down and see mud that is not mud. It clings dark and sticky. It smells like iron and rot. You breathe through the mouth because the nose rebels. Someone shouts victory. The word bounces strangely off the valley walls. It does not feel like songs. It feels like surviving a collapse. Therefore, the body stays tense, waiting for the next disaster even as the enemy retreats. Word spreads through panting mouths. Kitbuka is down. The Mongols pull away. The valley, this spring with a giant's name, now holds the moment the world changes direction. You search for familiar faces. Some appear, spattered and wide-eyed. Some do not. Therefore, the victory counts itself in absences. An empty helmet in the grass. A riderless horse nosing at a body. A bow snapped in half like a broken arm. You dismount, legs unsteady. The ground feels wrong underfoot, too soft in places. You force yourself not to look too long at any single corpse because the mind starts to assign names. But the sword still needs cleaning. Therefore, you wipe the blade with cloth that instantly stains. The act is practical, but it is also a way to keep the hands from trembling. The commanders move through the aftermath, faces hard, voices low. There is no feast here, not yet. There is only the urgent question. Does the enemy return tomorrow with twice the riders? You do not know. Therefore, guards are posted. Wounds are bound. Horses are gathered. The column begins to reform with the survivors. The living look older. The dead stay where they fall, teaching the ground a new memory. You feel the weight of what just happens, but it refuses to become joy. Yet something enormous sits beneath the exhaustion. Cairo still stands behind you, breathing. The Nile still flows untrampled by Mongol hooves. Therefore, the world does not become a single corridor of conquest down into Africa. The Mongols, who feel like weather, like gravity, like a law, are forced to retreat by men who decide to understand them instead of merely fearing them. Therefore, the idea of unstoppable conquest bleeds. The verdict arrives without ceremony. This victory is real, but it is not free. Friends vanish into the valley's dirt. Limbs are lost. Voices never speak again. You carry the cost in the soreness of joints and the sudden quiet in camp where certain laughs used to live. You feel the lesson carve itself into muscle. Invincibility is often a story that survives only until a disciplined counterstory arrives. Ain Jalut is not a miracle. It is intelligence under pressure, logistics that hold, and a trap built on understanding the enemy's addiction, momentum. Therefore, the mirror turns toward the present. You see the same addiction everywhere. The force that always wins starts taking risks because it cannot imagine losing. It accelerates. It overreaches. It assumes fear equals surrender. But fear is only useful when it becomes planning. Therefore, the smaller side, if it learns the ground, if it controls timing, if it refuses to panic, finds the moment to hook the giant and make it stumble. You step away from Ain Jalut alive, but you do not step away unchanged. You know now that history is not a river that drags everyone one direction. It is a grappling match in the dirt. Therefore, the legacy question hangs in the throat like smoke. When the next unstoppable force arrives in your own life, at work, in politics, in culture, in conflict, do you submit because the story says it always wins, or do you look for the valley, the timing and the discipline that makes the giant bleed?